2021. And their call-in number is 563-999-3581, and press 1, and that puts you into queue to talk to us. We'd love to hear your comments and questions because that makes this your show. We'll give Michael just a moment to get dialed in. Switch over from hosts, and I will just say, we start our second intensive tonight. It goes our live session from 6 to 8 o'clock, and we have an awesome group. We've had a few more people join us already just in the last day or two, and we have got people, 2 from Hawaii, 1 from Sweden, 2 from Canada, 1 from Thailand, and the rest are United States, but it goes from Canada or from California, Arizona, Texas, to Florida, North Carolina, Tennessee, Maine. So we are covering not just the United States, but we're just about covering the world. So welcome, everybody, and welcome, Michael.
Thank you, dear heart. Yeah, it's nice to have the vibe of what we're doing spreading out in so many directions. So it'd be nice to have somebody from down under there joining this intensive. Get the vibe going down south or up over, depending which way you happen to look at it. In any event, delighted and honored that you're here to be part of this and expand the energy of first century Aramaic forgiveness on a global scale, and to bring forward the process of healing, real healing, the healing of this energetic system rather than the outdated and outmoded beliefs and bodies and all that goes along with that. And we've talked about the idea that if you go to the opening words in the book of John, it doesn't say in the beginning was the Word and the Word became flesh, but rather it says in the beginning was the mind energy and the mind energy became flesh. Go to the Aramaic language and that's what it says. And we see that mind energy is literally what turns into what we call the organic structure. And we try to represent mind energy accurately with words. But when you realize that our sensory apparatus, when you look at you comprehend the known world, and that is the extensive frequency waves from cosmic rays to radio waves, and the enormity of it, our 5 senses are just these little tiny inputs that we receive frequencies from, but not even scratching the surface of what is actually in the creation. And we tend to be, what should I say, enculturated with popular experiences of the culture, and that's done to us, and I say that quite consciously, done to us with words. And when you realize that you only have words for what's in common experience, and the common experience of these little tiny things called the 5 senses, and so many people believing in the material world, words sort of become a joke. So the title of the 3rd chapter in Why Is This Happening to Me Again, page 13 if you're reading along with us, is Words Could Never Say. And so I'm going to give Richard, the character in the book, a metaphor to work with. Imagine a 2-dimensional creature, one who knows only length and width. There's no height in her world. Length and width are the only dimensions she sees. We want to play basketball with this creature. As we introduce the basketball into her space, imagine yourself in her position. You have a limited view of what is going on in the world. You can see only the length and width of things. Your ability to perceive is narrowed by 1 dimension from your normal human perception. From a flat context, a 3-dimensional perspective and understanding is simply impossible. When the basketball is moved into the two-dimensional creature space, what does she see? Richard paused. She's going to experience a flat line. Actually, perhaps a dot at first, and then a series of flat planes until she goes to the other end of the ball when it becomes a dot again. Notice that our two-dimensional friend, while she experiences something that does not exist. When she sees a series of flat planes pass by, she sees something take place that never actually happened. The basketball is not a series of flat planes. Though she experiences it such, it is a spherical object. Now, let's go one step further. The two-dimensional creature has invented, in her experience of the basketball, a thing called time. For you and me, the basketball is just there. There is no experience of time involved. Since her perception cannot encompass the whole of the ball at once, she experiences one part of the ball first and another last. This is how time is invented. Suddenly, a thing that for you and me is a single experience requiring no time becomes time-bound. What for us, in the same instant, seems to be a number of different separate experiences for a creature with limited perception. You might imagine that a two-dimensional creature names her separate experiences. She calls the first one Joe, another Mary. Each aspect of the ball, as it comes into her awareness, becomes something different. Its size, shape, nature, and character change with each perspective. As a result of limited perception, she invents and experiences a world that doesn't exist. And that can be a tough one for the human mind to grasp. And it's an important principle to recognize. If your perception is limited, you can experience something that never happened except as a perceptual reality in your mind. We're often taught to experience perceptual realities that don't exist anywhere but in our minds. And we're also taught to believe that those realities are true in the world outside of us when they are not. Imagine a two-dimensional friend's parents teaching her about a basketball. She's read all the history books. She studied the quote-unquote basketball experiences of all two-dimensional creatures from all time. What does this past speak of but events that never happened? A written chronicle of an experience that doesn't exist does not make it true. Basketballs simply do not exist as a series of events separated by time. They only appear to exist that way because of limited perception. When one dimension is missing in a perceptual system, the output of that system is always distorted. So we're going to leave that metaphor where it is. We'll pick it up again tomorrow, but just recognizing that when we're tasting, touching, smelling, looking, hearing, we think we're doing those things. We're dealing with perceptual constructs, and perceptual constructs are always limited. There's an interesting piece of information in the lesson, What is the World, from A Course in Miracles, and it says, perception is a skill made up by us to take the place of what the Creator gave us in creation. The work is about deleting, and the word delete there is forgive in Aramaic. The work is about forgiving those things that don't exist but happen over and over and over and over again in people's perceptual constructs because they've been brainwashed into them. So removal of those things that tie us into constructs that are nothing more than constructs of the mind. And our offering would be that everything based in hostility or fear is nothing but a construct of the mind. And when we learn to forgive, that is, remove the energetic patterns behind those constructs, then the constructs collapse. And in those spaces where those constructs collapse, if we'll allow ourselves to take a breath and let go of the mind's need to come in and fill the space with another construct, we have an opportunity to taste the actuality, to have an experience of what's actually going on in the world. And when you choose to do that, there will be a dying process and a being born process. That is, when I start to loosen my mind from that which is false, there's going to be an undoing or a dying process. And when that takes place, there is the space for what is actual to come into awareness, for what is actual to be born. And one of the things you've got to discipline yourself to do, if you're going to really be successful at doing this work, is be conscious of and in charge of your focus. Because if you focus on what is dying, then that focusing, if you go back to Yeshua 2,000 years ago, he says, let thine eye be single and thy body will be filled with light. And you say to yourself, what the heck does that mean? Well, let's recognize that this is not a theologian saying this. This is a physicist saying this. Thine eye be single is a singular perceptual focus. So let thine eye be single, and thy body will be filled with light. Now, if you talk to a modern-day physicist, they'll tell you that matter is quite literally light energy solidified. So if we're in a healing process, we've talked a lot about the healing crisis and the physical, mental, and emotional symptoms of healing, and that those energies need to be removed from our structure. But if we're in a healing process and it's usually symptomatic, and remember on a physical level, looks like any kind of physical symptom you've ever had in low energy. On a mental level, looks like any kind of negative thought you've ever had in confusion. On an emotional level, looks like any kind of negative feeling you've ever had and depression. That's what the healing process looks like. So if we don't discipline our minds on where we're going to put our focus, then our eye can be single on the symptoms of healing, and being focused there will simply recreate the disease process. When we are conscious, then in conscious awareness, you recognize that the symptomatic energy is that which is dying, that which is being released and being let go of, and the healing process is the state of reorganization and that which is coming into expression that is in alignment with truth and what is actually in the creation. Now, yesterday I spoke about an experience that I had yesterday morning where Jeanie was doing some work on my low back when we woke up, and this, I literally had a phrase appear that literally just lifted up out of that tissue in my low back. And the words were, it's okay to hurt me. And I realized in processing that what I had done was gone into agreement with my father, who was pretty liberal with the use of the belt, that it was okay to hurt me. And that was stored in that tissue. Now, up until, Jeanie, what year did we do orthobiotomy? That's probably 13 years ago, I'm thinking. From early childhood, when I was a kid, if I bent over the wrong way, I couldn't stand back up again. Somebody had to literally straighten me up, and I had back pain. And all of my life, every day of my life, there was back pain. And about 13 years ago, we brought in a teacher who teaches a thing called orthobiotomy, which is an energetic process for opening the energy field, letting go of things, and strengthening the patterns that are normal and proper for this human energy system. And, you've heard Patrick McGann. He's a naturopath, massage therapist, friend that I've worked with for over 40 years. And Patrick actually, working on my back, especially my low back, invented some new, it was so intense that he invented some new ways of doing back work where he actually used his feet instead of his hands because it was so hard on his hands. Jeanie had never really done any kind of hands-on work, but as we're doing this training, we go through, there's a piece of training on the low back. And Jeanie did those processes on me. And literally, it was the first time in my life that I experienced not having back pain. And I have not had one scintilla of back pain in this last 13 years, after literally a whole lifetime of back pain. Now, I shared with you what happened yesterday morning, and today I get up and what's happening? I've got back pain. Well, why is that, Michael? Because I touched into a disintegrated piece of mind energy, the permission to hurt me, that I had gone into agreement with my father over, another level of mind energy within my tissue structure. And as that opened now, and this is kind of why I'm focusing on this topic the way that I am. It's nice that it happens to fit in with the chapter in the book that we're reading. But I'm very clear of the principle that, and this is to really inform people when you get into a healing process. And Jeanie, maybe we can add this particular show in with our other healing crisis videos, because this is another piece, or pardon me, the radio shows we've done. This is another piece of that healing crisis and that healing process. Is if I let myself focus on that back pain, I could recreate an injured back and end up with back pain for the rest of my life again. Or I can let loose of, forgive a focus on what is dying, what is being released from my structure, rather than being drawn to that pain and being locked into that energy. Remember, when that eye is single, thy body will be filled with light. A singular focus means you're going to bring about that frequency in form. What do I do if it's there? It's real, it's there. I have to discipline my perception to stay focused on what is being born. What is being born is moving through a healing crisis, a healing process that is the undoing of that old disintegrative energy and the rebuilding of the structure in accord with the new energy that is the focus. And so I have to discipline my mind to stay focused on what I'm about creating. Again, let thine eye be single. Singular focus on, okay. So now I'm in willingness. I'm going to embrace this energy. I'm going to let it move through me. And I'm going to stay focused on conscious, active, present love. So that that light of conscious, active, present love dissolves the old patterned energy that has surfaced. And as I keep conscious, active, present love with that, the dissolution will occur, and there will be a literal reknitting, a rebuilding. That's why, when we talk about the symptoms of healing, on a physical level, it's any kind of physical symptom you've ever had in low energy. You'll hear me talk to people on the show about, and when you go into that healing crisis, you've got to undo. You're literally undoing the patterned energy of the past. It takes a lot of energy. That's why one of the symptoms of healing is low energy. And then you have to reassemble it according to the new focus. That takes a lot of energy. What are the symptoms of healing? Well, I touched into the thought, going into agreement that it was okay to hurt me. And what went along with that? Back pain. Allowing that thought to surface, what I know is happening is literally a restructuring of the tissue. And remember, we've said over and over and over again for years, healing isn't Dr. Feelgood. That's why most people don't want to go there. And not understanding the process, when healing starts to happen and they undo the old symptomatic energy, the focus becomes, oh, look at all these terrible symptoms, physical, mental, emotional. And by focusing on the physical, mental, emotional of what is dying, people cause it to be reborn in them. They reinforce it and recreate according to it. When you understand the principle, you recognize, so this is what's being undone, and I'm going to breathe, I'm going to stay focused in love, and I'm going to stay focused in the perfect rebuilding that takes place. And go through the process of healing, physical, mental, emotional symptoms of healing. If untoward emotions come up in the process, breathe, bring them into the active presence of love. Another great line in the Course in Miracles, it says, you must bring the world you do not want to the one you do. If you're going to live as a human being, obviously the world you want is the world of conscious, active, present love. So what do you need to do to heal? You need to bring the world you do not want, the old symptomatic energy, which may be your own symptoms, it may be generational patterns. But whatever it is, to stay focused in the presence of active love as the undoing symptomatic energy is being released, and you step into a whole new space. So remember to discipline your focus. Let thine eye be single upon that which you are bringing into experience, into existence, that which is being born, as you let loose of that which is dying, the old, the letting go, the symptomatic energy. And so I hope that makes sense. And if it needs any more refinement, let's open the phones and see if anyone has any questions about it. So if you're out there in listener land, our call-in number, if you're on one of those stations where we can't see you, our call-in number is 563-999-3581. If you call that number, you'll be listening to the show. And as you're listening, if a question comes up for you and you push 1, raises a hand in the control panel, and Jeanie will know that you want to talk to us. She'll open your mic and we'll have a conversation. So that explanation, that brief explanation on the healing process, does that open anything up for you? Does that arouse any questions for you? And if so, push 1. Let's have a conversation about it. Ms. Jeanie, do we have any questions in the chat room or anything happening in the phone queue?
No questions in either place, so we've got 37 minutes. We've got plenty of time. Let's press 1 or ask your question.
Cool, let's go for it. So is that all making sense for everybody? Anybody have any questions about that? As we finish the first 1/12 of 2021, when Jeanie was talking this morning about how quickly January has gone by, 5 days from the end of January already. Been a quick process. And we happen to have this beautiful sunny day here in Bristol, Virginia. It's about 51, 52 degrees. A little cooler than yesterday. It was about 10 degrees warmer yesterday, but nice clear blue skies. And hope that your weather is awesome where you are. I understand there's a prediction of some big storms coming in around the country, so we'll hold the space for everybody to be safe. And of course, the political and the disease storms going on around the nation, around the world. We'll hold the space for healing of those things and stepping into integrity with this energy system in which we live, move, and have our being. And it's interesting, if you look back through all of history, you'll see those who refused to get lost in the brainwash of the culture all came up with the same end result. Now, not the warrior that wanted to go off and kill people and steal and take and, would lie or cheat or do anything they needed in order to get something from others. But those who lived in being, who chose to serve, they all came up with when they withdrew their senses from the manifest world, they all came up with pretty much the same thing. We live, move, and have our being in a space of what's designed to be conscious, active, present love. And when we realize that that's the stuff we're made of, that's who we are, then a whole different possibility occurs than one who's stuck and lost. You know, if you take a really close look, you'll notice that, you know, just about everywhere you look, you see these two opposing forces. Some call them good and evil. But basically, there are people who are takers, and it doesn't matter how much they have to lie, how much they have to cheat, who it hurts, who dies, who has diseases, who doesn't matter. They'll make up and do whatever they need to do to keep taking. And then there are people who live in a world of support and giving. Those who live in being. It's a natural thing to do when you live in a state of being. And what the state of being does is it's naturally generous, it's naturally abundant, and it just reaches out and adds to the creation rather than always trying to take from the creation. And the reason for that, my take is, because the ego structure, one who lives in the taker world, is cut off from knowing themselves as creators. Those who live in the world of being understand themselves as creators. And, you know, if you want to know, if you want a direct experience of what that energy is, just hold a newborn child. Just hold a newborn baby and tap into the essence of the newborn. And when you tap into the essence of that newborn, you find that presence of active present love. It's our created essence. And when we fall from grace, in the way the ancients talked about it, fall from grace, when we lose awareness of that and we buy into a mental structure of ourselves as a body with certain attributes and certain ways of living, then we live in that ego state. It's been called ego. And, you know, if you remember in the ancient scriptures, the word love equates the word God. God is love, not some dude with a beard on a throne somewhere in a throne room, but rather is love. So hold the newborn, you get a direct experience of conscious, active, present love. And you start to realize that's where you live. And conscious, active, present love is creatorship. It is abundant. It flows. It gives rather than has to take. But when we're fed the mind energy of disintegrative thoughts about self, thought disorders based in hate and fear and sadness and greed and grief and pain, then we build a structure into our minds, and there comes a point where one falls into identification with that structure. We'll get into that principle more deeply as we unfold the codependence workshop in this next intensive. When we fall into identification with that, the rest of the work is about forgiving, that is, dissolving that which locks us out of our deepest creatorship. And by being restored to our deepest creatorship, everything changes. That would be another way of describing what this work is about. And Jeanie?
We have a hand up.
Awesome. Let's say hello.
I think it's Ellen. It's 484. You're on the air.
Hi, yes, this is Ellen. I'm not sure if you remember me, Michael. I'm relatively new to your work, and I really want to thank Susan Bim for introducing me to it.
Awesome. Glad you're here. Good to hear your voice.
Thank you. Yeah, Susan asked me if I was listening, and I said no, I was busy doing some things, but then I thought, okay, well, maybe I should listen, and I called in, and what you were saying, just resonated with me, and
time for you to hear it? Awesome. That's exciting.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask your advice about something, because I have been really tapping into this fear around going into this intense rage that I used to experience when I was a child, and I know that somehow I stopped it. I remember I was afraid for my life, and I knew that if I didn't get it under control somehow, I might really end up in a mental institution. And so anyway, so it finally came back into my awareness. I would say my late 30s, and I've been kind of, I got myself into therapy for the first time finally when I was in my early 50s, and now here I am in my early 60s, and I still
turning the clock backwards to your 40s.
Okay.
As you heal, youthing and turning the clock backward, right?
Right.
Okay. You got my support.
Thank you. So, I guess my question is, it's become so apparent to me just recently that this energy wants to come up and move through me.
It's rage.
And
yeah, I hear you.
Yeah, I feel like if I allow that to happen, and I know that that's exactly what I need to do, that I am going to erupt like a volcano. I am just going to erupt.
And it'll never stop.
And,
I understand it very well.
I know it won't kill me, even though I thought it might when I was a child. My question is this something that I should try and handle on my own, or do you think because I live alone, I don't have a partner, is this something that I should try and get someone who knows what they're doing with this sort of thing to be with? And I know it's hard now because of COVID. It's like you can't really be with people. But I kind of am afraid to face it alone.
I hear you.
And I'm just not sure what to do because I feel like it wants to come out, and it's like the pressure of it is getting more and more intense.
Yep, I hear you. Well, let me share a little bit about what I hear you saying is happening and where you're going and what support we can offer you. So I just described, my experience yesterday with Jeanie in my own structure, touching into a thought disorder that I held that was integrated into my structure and is, as it comes out, painful. And the healing process, the opening of that, one of the core principles that we talk about, and this is like kind of the ultimate place we're going in the codependence intensive that we're doing, codependence penance communication practicum. And one of the things we'll talk about there is what we call a power person. And a power person is a person in your life who had more power over your life than you did, was not functioning as love, and you perceived the circumstance as survival. Usually it's a parent, although not always. It can be a sibling. And it usually happens in childhood, but not always. It can happen to, I've worked with people who were working through the power person dynamic of something that happened to them as a fully grown adult. But what happens is, here we are, we come into the world as conscious, active, present love. And that's what we know, and that's it. If you've ever watched a child go back to their abuser over and over and over and over and over and over again as love, they're functioning out of their true nature. And what happens is that the power person, who of course had a power person, who had a power person, who had a power person, it tends to be generational. It's not that somebody's to blame, it's just what's been passed on through the generations. The power person lives out of a series of thought disorders, and as a parent usually tends to hand it on to the child by giving the child thoughts about itself that are not true. So, we've shared back a couple of years ago. We're up in Michigan, and they have an art festival that covers this one whole town, all the stores and churches and businesses and outdoor spaces. They've got all these art displays, and one of them that really struck me in this one particular display was a mannequin, and a woman artist had created this mannequin, and all over the body of the mannequin were these thought disorders, these messages that were given. And there were messages like, you're no good, you'll never be any good, you should have been a boy. One of that I remember just really struck me, like really hit me in the heart, was, I wish you'd die so that I can be happy. That was one of the messages on this mannequin's body. So here are all these thought disorders this artist had brought forward that she had experienced in her life. And these are usually messages that come from a power person. What happens is that those power persons, those messages coagulate in the mind. If you were on yesterday's show, we talked about the fact that we have this digital to analog converter. Thoughts are digital information, and our mind is designed to convert them into pictures. So digital to analog, from information to picture. And so when these thought disorders accumulate enough strength in the mind, enough energy, and they fire together, they kind of coagulate, as it were, into an image of who we think we are as a body. And it integrates all of these thought disorders. And when that becomes strong enough, we're going into some of the actually advanced work in the codependence workshop right now. When that becomes strong enough, that coagulates as a picture in our mind of who we are. And when we, as created essence love being, fall into that, make the error of becoming identified with that false image in the mind, we shift from our whole physiological presence being fueled by love. The child, and this is the reason why the child comes back over and over and over and over again, is love, because the child's whole physiology is fueled, as it's designed to be. Every cell is fueled by love. So it's literally bliss. If you listen to the Eastern mystics, they wanted to take us all back to nirvana. Nirvana was living as a human being, living where the source of our feeling and our thought was from this state of being that we were created in and born in. But when this what we call the non-being self, so now we've got being, the created essence, and the non-being self, and the point at which being, because of the pressures of, the culture, the family system, the power person dynamics, fell into identification with those thought disorders. Oh, that's right. I'm no good. I'm broken. I'll never be good enough. No one will ever love me. Whatever all those thought disorders are, then we shift from literally being in a state of bliss to a state where physiologically we're fueled by pain and trauma of those thought disorders. And that's a moment that I've identified with people, for people, as the point at which, having given up being fueled by love and physiologically experiencing the presence of love, having given that up for a body filled with pain, thought disorders running the system, and feeling that instead of the bliss, having given up that state of being, there's the most intense rage that anyone could ever experience. It's a piece of work that I've only, in the 50 years I've been doing this work, seen 3 or 4 people actually approach and do any amount of that piece of work. In fact, if you go back into the creation story where it talks about us being kicked out of heaven, there's this story about the cherubim and the seraphim, these vicious creatures that guard the gates of heaven so we can't get back in. And they, we've with our projection, we've been told that God did that to us. But in reality, they're telling a true story. We did it to us. It's our own rage and our own pain that keeps us from going back to that original state. And you have to face thought disorder by thought disorder by thought disorder to remove those things. And sometimes they are patterns that have gone on for 1,000 generations in the bloodline. So you might actually do, as Yeshua at one point said, they said to him, how many of these worksheets do we have to do? How many times do we need to forgive? Is 7 times enough? And in Aramaic, the Greeks tell us he said 7 times 70. In Aramaic, it was 77 times 70. How much work will we do to weaken and dissolve those thought disorders that have us functioning and feeling from pain rather than feeling from bliss? And the rage is one of the seraphim. The rage is one of the blocks to getting back to the original. So I hear exactly what you're saying about the rage, and that's your next piece of work. That's what you're going to start to dismantle. Now, you may literally do, or you probably will do, 77 times 70 forgiveness processes around that whole issue. And when we say 77 times 70, we're not talking about something literal. The disciples were a bunch of fishermen standing by the side of the ocean, and they said, is 7 times enough? And I think we can probably rest assured that when he said 77 times 70, they weren't going, well, let's see, 7 7 is 49, carry the force. We're trying to figure out literally a literal number of worksheets. But 7 is a number of or infinity, 77 times 70. How many will we do? An infinite number of times we're going to forgive until we're finished with that family pattern of that kind of rage running us and running our lives and running our physiology and creating our feeling nature. So I'm getting ready to approach a really deep piece of work. Pardon me?
Yeah, it feels overwhelming to me.
It's big stuff. I understand. But here's the thing. It can be done. It's not going to be done today. It's not going to be done overnight. It's a process. I've been doing this work for 50 years. And every once in a while I get to share with the audience another piece that's come up for me, like I did from yesterday. That's another piece of my work. And after 50 years of work, I know I'll have more of that to do. And I'm so excited about that piece because it's an important one. And I'm excited to be in pain in my back today because I know what's being undone, and I'm disciplining my perception to stay focused on what I'm creating next, how I'm processing through those energies and moving forward. It is a process. It's not going to be done yesterday. But here's the thing. It can be done. And step by step by step, you move out of darkness back into the light where you're designed to live. So yes, a little help from your friends. You've got that support group that's happening with Susan. And I know that Susan does, private personal work as well. It might be appropriate because you're right on track with where we're going with a codependence to interdependence communication practicum. And that actually starts tonight. You might want to join that intensive. Because what we're going to do is we're going to start building right from scratch, right from the why is this happening to me again, going through into healing through relationships, going through into the codependent. And I've just kind of given you like one of the pinnacle pieces of the codependence workshop. And then we're going to move it into the communication realm along with mind shifters and still point breathing. So there's a whole process designed to do exactly what you're asking for. And if you go back through the last 10 years of archives, I don't know, we've got well over 3,000, probably close to 4,000 hours. 4,000 hours in the archives. If you go back and listen to every minute of Dr. Tim's conversation and my conversation, you'll hear us address nothing but the piece of work that you're asking about doing in 1,000 different ways. And, it's just like everybody, when they hear that it's possible, wow, I can actually shift back to where I live in love and my physiology, every cell is fueled by love. Wow, I want to be there yesterday. And everybody wants to storm the gates. You know, they go back in the scriptures 2,000 years ago. They talk about you can't storm the gates of the kingdom. And the kingdom isn't some, pardon me, mystical place off in the sky somewhere. The kingdom is, if you go to the Aramaic words where they spoke about the kingdom of heaven, the Greeks translated as that. Those words actually in Aramaic translate as the community of love. And we walk around with 1,000 generations of unresolved hate and fear and rage and guilt and grief and condemnation and gossip and slander and vengeance and fear and terror and trauma. And we say, oh, heaven, yeah, I want to be there yesterday. Hooray, I could do it. Like, no, you can't storm the gates. You pick up the tools, you do your work. And piece by piece by piece, you let go of what doesn't belong, and you'll integrate being back into your physiology. You'll face patterns. You know, I don't know if you were on the show a couple of weeks ago, and if not, maybe Jeanie could put a link in the archives to it. Magda, who's a woman who lives out, she and her beau, they actually met at Heartland and bought a farm just a mile and a half or so from Heartland to be part of that community. She'd been doing the work for about 12 years and has been through 8 or 9 intensives. And a few weeks ago, in the Codependence Intensive, she did just a monumental piece of work with her grandfather, who lived in great rage and fear and trauma and pain, and abusively passed that on to his wife and his children. And out of the Codependence Intensive, she shared this in the intensive, and I'll tell you, when she shared it in the intensive, it had me in tears. And then she called back into the radio show just 2 or 3 weeks ago and shared that particular piece of work with our listening audience and had me in tears once again. Just the power of being able to open on that level and be able to process through those things. Now, there's certain people who really aren't interested and don't care and are willing to just, you know, live out of their drama and trauma. And there's certain people who go, and I have to do my work. Mm-hmm. And so what we're here to do is to support you with this radio show, with the archives, and, you know, Susan's got the support group, the other support groups that go on, and, you know, move forward on whatever level you're ready to be supported. And if, you know, if you're ready to take it all to the next level, then you might want to just jump into the intensive and start on a whole new level. There's a whole different quality of support that comes in doing the progression of the intensive. So, however it fits, we're here to support you.
Okay, thank you. Yeah,
You're
actually,
welcome.
we had our support group this morning, and Susan asked if I wanted to do, you know, a worksheet on this, and I hesitated because I was just afraid of where I was going to go, and that, you know, that fear of.
Yeah, a lot of people live in the space of, oh my God, if I ever opened that, I'd never stop screaming and raging. I might kill somebody. And that's not true. It's just an ego threat. It's just another piece of energy. And as you develop the skill and the ability to process those energies, and in this work we define processing as the ability to hold love conscious, active, and present when something less than love comes up. So as you develop the skill and your ability to hold to active love, then you'll strengthen in that ability, and that will lead to deeper and deeper levels of dissolution of that old rage space that sooner or later we all need to face and work through.
Right.
And it requires patience, you know. As I say, I've been on it for 50 years, and I just got another exciting piece of my puzzle yesterday. I'm working through it today.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's wonderful when that happens. I've been, you know, doing, I would say, this work since about 1999. Now, I wasn't aware of the tools that you have developed, but I've been doing A Course in Miracles since then.
Perfect.
And,
awesome.
Yeah, so,
well, you remember the Course, you know, the Course gives us that instruction. You must bring the world you do not want to the one you do. That rage aspect is something you need to practice and bring to the presence of love until it's dissolved. That's your process.
Yeah.
And the way you do that is through forgiveness. And, there are only two places on the planet that I've found an exact and specific definition of how to forgive. In the first century Aramaic teachings of Yeshua, that's where I found it first. That's where I saw it first. That's where I came to start to build the brain cells and understand it. You remember Yeshua says his work is only for those who have the eyes to see and the ears to hear. Got to build the brain cells. And he offers this tool of shebag. In Aramaic, that's what the word forgive has been translated as, but the word literally means to cancel. And where you cancel the goal that's driving your pained perception, because the goal is the driver for the mind's utilization of that pain in creating our perceptual output. When I cancel the goal, that perceptual output based in pain collapses in on itself. If you imagine, we all saw the 9/11 towers go down. This building in free fall dropped in on its own footprint. When you cancel a goal that's driving your mind to some sort of pain, in this case rage, you look at the goal, what's the goal? Gee, I'm just walking along and all of a sudden I'm in rage. What happened? Well, I was walking down the street and that I walked past that person, they looked at me kind of cross-eyed like, maybe they thought I was evil. And so what did I want? I mean, here I am in this rage pointed at them. What's going on? Well, I wanted them to look at me with love and respect in their eyes. So what's forgiveness look like in that situation? I cancel my need for them to look at me with love and respect in their eyes. And now what happens? That perceptual construct, which is just the tip of the iceberg that the mind shows me, collapses in on its footprint. And now I go back maybe to, being a 3-year-old whose, father came home drunk in such rage and turned and spit on me and made of me, threw out thought disorders that had me feeling like garbage. That might be what I collapse into, and I bring that world that I do not want, that energetic experience, forward in the presence of love by canceling the goal for this person. Here I am, 60 years later, and I'm in rage at this person that I just walked past because of the look they gave me. But it was the same set of eyes that my father gave me in that experience. And when I cancel the goal for it, I get to drop into that part of my energetic experience. I get to bring that forward from the unconscious to the conscious. I bring it forward in the presence of active love. Yeshua says, in the scriptures, they say, take care of the heart, for out of it are the issues in life. I don't need to forgive that person who gave me that quote-unquote dirty look, or the father who did what he did. I might choose to pardon them, but in order to take care of my own unconscious, I cancel the goal so that my surface mind's perceptual construct collapses in on itself. This single piece of information took me almost 35 years working full-time with Yeshua's teachings to understand. To be able to explain this to you right now, it took me almost 35 years full-time. And it's the core of the work. And I understand why we live in a world where everybody turns forgiveness into, okay, I'm going to let you off the hook. I'll let you off the hook. I'll forgive you. I'll forgive you. I'll forgive you. And substituted pardoning for forgiveness, because to understand, why would I cancel a perfectly good goal? I just want this person to look at me with loving and respectful eyes. Why would I cancel? That's stupid. Not when you understand how the mind works. It took me that long to understand it. So I understand why all over the world people are trying to forgive each other and thinking that's going to carry off the healing process. But it does nothing to take care of our own heart, our own unconscious dynamics. Now, the first place I found that understanding was in the Aramaic, the only other place I've seen it on the earth. And, by the way, I've never seen anybody working with the Course in Miracles that can explain it to me. that has even found how to forgive. But there's a passage in the Course that says precisely what the first century Aramaic forgiveness process is. And here's what it says. Let go all the things you think you want, your goals, and then it says your trifling treasure. And whatever your goal is, aside from living as a human being, it's a trifling treasure. It says let go all the things you want, your trifling treasure put away. Leave a clean and open space within your mind. In other words, collapse your perception that is a construct that comes from that deeply held, pained place of the unconscious. Collapse it back in on its own footprint, and now you've got a clean and open space where love can come and expose that underlying energy to love, which causes its dissolution, and that is forgiveness.
Mm-hmm.
And how many times might we do that in order to be finished with any given issue? Well, 77 times 70. And it sounds like you're on your 77 times 70 worksheet issue, and that's awesome. Good work. Very few people ever even start to get close to that or comprehend it, let alone have the support to be able to ask, wait a minute, what's going on here? How does this work?
Right.
So here we are. Well, and you've given the whole community the chance to hear this. How cool is that?
Well, it's interesting, too, because I just so much recently I've been becoming more and more aware of this child within me. The child is actually been crying for my attention, crying for my attention, and I've really started speaking like a child. I mean, it's just coming out in so many ways, and I realize that, yes, I have ignored her for so long. And
time to bring her to the active presence of love.
Yes, that's what I was doing last night, and I was telling her that she didn't need to be afraid of these feelings, and that I would be right there with her, and we would go through it together. And then here I am today, like, oh, I'm so afraid of it. Again, identifying with that instead of identifying with the one that is there.
Next layer.
Love.
Next layer that needs to come up to be forgiven. And here's what to know, is as you do that, you will do the easy layers first. And then as you build in strength and ability, when you build your vitality, you'll be able to access layers of that you would never be able to do in your normal state of thinking. So, in the healing process, imagine we've got a vitality meter that goes from 1 to 10, and I'm at a level 5 vitality, and I have this level 7 toxic experience, that one I described from Dad. If I'm at a level 5 vitality, I can want to clean that up till the cows come home. It's not going to move. It's not going to move until I reach a level 7.5 vitality. Then I'm going to be able to process through that. And that's one of the powers of, say, for instance, joining in a support group like the one that Susan's doing, because that joining strengthens you and increases your vitality so that you can go to those deeper layers and clean them out. That's the power of community. That's why this work has always been, built around community.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you're ready to move to the next level, we've got, a powerful community coming together. It'll start, first session starts tonight, and, you might be ready to go to the next level. So, or carry on with listening to the archives and working with Susan. She's there in a powerful space doing her work and opening the space for many. So it's awesome. And we're down to the last minute, and so if there are any other thoughts or questions, we could carry this conversation on tomorrow, but the show's going to cut us off in the next minute or so, or the next 30 seconds. So I'm just going to say thank you for the question and the opportunity to fill that out. I mean, that just makes this whole hour. We'll have to put this one in the special archives. Pretty awesome. And everybody have the best year yet of your eternal life. It's an awesome gift to give the world. You deserve it. The world needs it. Blessings. Thank you.